Welcome to Inside Coverage, the how and the why behind what's going on in the NFL. I am Frank Schwab, your host today. I'm with Charles Robinson, Ben Fawkes. We are live here at the Venetian in Las Vegas, not far from the Yahoo Sportsbook. We are here for Yahoo Fantasy Kickoff Weekend. That crew's going to be here, all their sleepers, all their great picks, all their strategies. Stay tuned for that, and you can watch us on the Yahoo Sports Network. That's our brand new streaming TV channel. The Yahoo Sports Network is available to stream on fast services. That's free ad-supported television available on your smart TVs. It's also streaming live 24/7 on yahoosports.tv. You can catch all of our shows on your phone, your browser. You can watch Charles all day long. It's great. So we have some news to talk about, boys, because Jerry Jones just keeps talking about Micah Parsons. And it got a little ugly today. He went on Michael Irvin's podcast and said, I quote, he did negotiate a deal with Micah Parsons before. He kind of
in private,
did a private without the agent there. And Jerry Jones told Michael Irvin, when we wanted to send the details to the agent, who's David Mulligetta, the agent told us to stick it up our keister. I don't want to get fired. I don't want to get bleeped, but you can fill in the blanks there. Charles, this is ugly. This is an ugly turn, and it just seems like this is not progressing towards Micah Parsons being on the field. This is progressing towards we're digging in on each side, and is anything going to happen here? This is bad, isn't it, for these negotiations?
It's landscape changing. I mean, when you get to a point where the two sides aren't saying anything, you know, the direction of a negotiation can go a lot of different ways, you know, out of silence. But when there not only isn't silence, but now you're crossing a boundary, which is, once you cross a boundary and you start talking about what happened inside the negotiation, what you're doing is you're stacking sandbags, you're digging your foxhole. Yeah. Like, you're basically saying to the fans, we're not in the wrong here. And you can express whatever frustration you want, but here's what happened in the negotiation. So for him to effectively go out and say, we had the deal done, we sent it to David Mulligetta, he told it to stick it up our rear ends, and this is now ultimately where we're at. But not only did he say that, he also added in the extra sort of dimension of, well, hey, we ran out the clock with Dak Prescott with the number of years we had control on that deal. Mm-hmm. So to me, you're not
it's
only
almost
saying,
a threat.
Yeah, it's
we've done this
a
before.
Threat. Yeah. Right. He said we can't deal with the agent, and we've gone through prolonged negotiations where we couldn't agree with an agent, and we went down that road with Dak Prescott. And to me, it's them signaling that this is real, this impasse is real, and now the only thing that can change this is if Micah Parsons says, I'm not playing any games.
Which is crazy. Let me ask you, because I don't think everybody kind of realizes that the Jerry Jones end around here with the agent is this is not how business happens in the NFL. No. So why wouldn't and Jerry keeps saying, we had a deal done with Micah Parsons. Well, right. That deal doesn't mean anything without the agent there, right? Like, how, not concerning, but it's almost insulting to the Micah Parsons side that he's trying to end around the agent here, David Mulligetta.
And we've talked about this on the show in the past, that as a franchise, they have a reputation for doing this.
Yeah.
They have a reputation with star players. We're trying to corner them, for lack of a better term, corner them into one-on-one situations, negotiate deals behind the backs of agents, and then just tell the agents, well, you're not necessary now. We did the deal with the player. And look, okay, Jerry, maybe that's something that you could fly 30 years ago.
Right.
That's not how it works now. And, oh, by the way, David Mulligetta is not a one-player agent, right? He's not someone.
He's one of the most powerful agents in the NFL.
He is the most powerful agent in the NFL right now, and it's not a situation where you can go and say we're dealing with an agent who just doesn't know what he's doing, right? Because you do see that happen. You will see prolonged holdouts, and typically what you start to hear in the background is it's a one-player agent. He's going to fire his agent. He's going to hire Drew Rosenhaus, or he's going to hire David Mulligetta, right, and the deal will be done in a week. It'll be done. This is a completely different scenario. He's taking on the bull. Like, this is it. And, you know, so for this to be where it is for the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, it's as bad a situation as it could
Charles,
be now.
Why is Jerry going this route? He knows you got to deal with the agents on this stuff. Like, this is going to be a $42 million a year deal, right? Why is he dug in so much on just, I am doing the end around on David Mulligetta here? Because he even brought that up today. He's like, hey, this isn't about the agent. He's trying to make it about him. Like, he's making this really personal with David,
right,
and I'm not sure why. Like, what's the point?
It's the unanswered question. I mean, there's look, in the past when Dak Prescott was doing this deal, Todd France and Stephen Jones were not best buddies. They were not on each other's Christmas card lists, right? But they still had a line of communication open. There has not been a point of advanced to say why the Joneses refused to deal with David Mulugeta. Now, it could be that, as you said, you think it's a $42 million a year deal, and they know if we sit down with David, it's going to be a $45 million annual average value,
Right.
and it's going to be not $160 million in guaranteed money. It might be 180. Who knows? David drives that kind of bargain. I mean, he sets records with his clients, and I think for Jerry, one thing he did say on Michael Irvin's podcast I thought that was interesting. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, I gave up ground in that negotiation. I did some things that I didn't want to do in that negotiation. That's great, but you're negotiating with a player.
Right.
His expertise is beating the living crap out of quarterbacks. It's not sitting down and figuring out every granular detail, figuring out structure, figuring out guarantees, injury guarantees. There's a multitude of facets that Jerry Jones holds the advantage when he's sitting there and he's dealing with a player versus an agent. It's a much more level playing field when it's an agent and owner.
Now, Ben, I wanted to go to you here because I look at the Cowboys situation now, and I think all three of us would have to be in agreement. Micah's not going to be there week one. Like, things can change, but we're so acrimonious right now. I don't think – how did the Cowboys change without Micah? Because I look at that team and I say, they ain't beating Philly week one without Micah Parsons. How many – looks to me like Jerry Jones is spiting his team right here because I don't think there's a 500 team without Micah Parsons.
And look, I mean, a couple things, right? First, it's great to be at a poker table. I think this could be a first for the podcast. Also, the Cowboys, they've done the tough part. They've drafted stars, right?
Right.
The contract negotiation should be the easy part, or easier. This is kind of set. It's just, does Jerry want to pay or not? And the price isn't going down as we get closer and closer to the season, one would think. Cowboys are a touchdown underdog to the Eagles in week one, right? That's a really important game for their entire season, let alone week one. A couple just betting nuggets that I thought were interesting from them too. Their win total is only 7.5, right? We think of that pretty low for the Cowboys.
I like the over before this Micah stuff. I can't lie.
That's their lowest since 2003, right? And their Super Bowl odds are 50-1. That's the worst since 2014. So odds makers, and that has been bet up, right? 60% of bets, 63% of the money at BetMGM on that over 7.5. So again, though, that's assuming, right, that Micah is playing. There are few teams, I think, that can obviously lose a player like Micah Parsons, but the Cowboys are one. They don't have the depth, right?
We saw their defense last year without Micah. It was not good.
And another thing, too, that the reason why I think that really factors here, Jerry keeps bringing up this negotiation with Emmitt Smith, right, decades ago, where he said, hey, Emmitt Smith missed 2 games that season. Charles Haley put his helmet through a wall after a loss,
right, when they were 0-2,
and said, get it done, and in an expletive-laced tirade, right, that has become legend in Cowboys history. The difference was the Cowboys knew they had a Super Bowl winning team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They had
They could dig out of 0-2 and win a Super Bowl. Emmett won MVP
absolutely.
that year. Yeah.
And Charles Haley did it because he knew we have the team. What are you doing? Like, why are you destroying our chance to win a Super Bowl? And they won a Super Bowl that year after Emmett came back in and signed the deal. But that pressure is not there. This could be maybe it's a 7-win team without Micah. Maybe it's a 9-win team with Micah. So the pressure there and thinking you're burning a year of a Super Bowl window, maybe if you're sitting there and you're kind of playing it out, you're saying it's better to burn the year, make the stand now, than affect what we believe is going to be a larger window down the line, right? And it's again, I can't believe it's here, and we found all these different ways to look at the situation and think maybe it's a ploy, maybe it's not as bad, maybe, I brought up the conspiracy theory of like maybe Jerry's doing this to pump up the Netflix. I'm telling you, when you go out and you say the agent told us to stick it up our rear, it is over. That is it. You are as bad as it can be right now.
And just jumping in on expectations, right? We said 50-1 for their Super Bowl odds. No team has won the Super Bowl since 2001. The 2001 Patriots were 60-1 with odds 40-1 or worse, right? So again, records are being made to be broken. That can all happen, but this isn't a team we
this ain't the 99 Rams.
Exactly.
Like, it ain't going to happen. Real quick, how do you guys think this turns out with Micah and the Cowboys, Ben?
I think it gets done. I think it's just a question of when it gets done. These all seem acrimonious until there's a lot of money put in front and it's signed. He's way too important to that team. One of the best defensive players in the league. They have to get it done.
I don't know now.
Yeah, right. That's where I'm at.
I don't know because now it is it's open combat between he and David Mulugeta now that he has said this. And I don't know Mulugeta to be the type to fold in this situation. Go, fine, we'll do it your way. And I don't know Jerry to be the type to fold either. I think we could see Micah sit out, miss a couple of games, ultimately come back in and play, or maybe he comes in and he plays regardless. But I think there's a very, very larger percentage chance now that Micah plays in 2025 without an extension. He just plays the contract
just
out.
plays it out. But then the franchise tag comes in, and we haven't heard the end of this. This is getting worse. I thought it was going to get better before it got worse. That's not true. Let's transition real quick. Travis Hunter won't play this weekend. Now, Charles, you were there at Jaguars practice when Travis Hunter kind of probably injured himself.
Yeah, I think
he went down hard. I wanted you to talk about that. Basically, what Liam Cohen said was, look, if we had a regular season game this week, he'd probably play, but what's the point? We want him healthy for week one. But go through that. What did you see out of him at practice when he got hurt? And are either guys concerned about Travis Hunter? Like, we're talking about this guy playing maybe 75, 80% of the snaps. He's already hurt going into the season. That ain't good.
Well, I think this factors now because it's when you talk about worrying about Travis Hunter and injury concerns and the snap counts, you want something demonstrable to present itself that supports being worried, right? We hadn't had that up until now. And I was at practice, and they had their full-on scrimmage where their ones face their ones, their twos face their twos, the threes face their threes, and it was meant to be an intense, practice. That was the point. That was the whole reason it was set up that way. And I told you on the previous show, and we did not yet know that I believe he did hurt himself on this play, but I watched him dive as a receiver on a play, dove for a ball, landed really hard, and I thought to myself, and he laid there, and I thought to myself, oh man, he just hurt himself. Like, and I thought maybe this is a bad injury because he rolled around for a second, and then eventually popped up and he went back, and I thought, okay, we're okay, but oof, that was a little scary. But the way he dove, he landed on the upper body, like shoulder area, the way receivers do when they dive for balls. And now that they've held him out, they didn't play him in the last two preseason games. And you hear Liam Cohen saying, do we want him now or do we want him week one?
Right, which makes sense.
Which makes sense. It does make sense. But again, this presents data to you. This is what you're worried about. And now you're already seeing effectively the first presentation of load management where they're like, hey, he dinged himself. Right. Now we got to hold him back so that we have him for something else. I feel like this is the journey that they're starting on with Travis Hunter. Like, is this how this is going to be? We don't know. But we're now finding out. We're seeing things present themselves that I think could be repetitive throughout this attempt to play him in two positions.
And all the former players, people are asking, right, can he play both ways? No one is saying it's a skill issue. It's a wear and tear.
Yeah,
exactly. Right?
No, that's a good point.
Exactly what it is.
That is the issue. We've already seen this in practice. Allen Iverson, right? We're talking about practice here. That's the big issue. And also, the Jaguars, like we were talking about before, they don't have a lot behind him, right? Travis Hunter is supposed to be a force multiplier, both on offense and defense. Brian Thomas Jr. looks like a star. If he's your number one, and now Travis Hunter's a number two, all of a sudden that's taking coverage away from Brian Thomas, potentially, De'Ami Brown they signed. It isn't like you have, a star wide receiver core there. Same thing on defense, right? You have a great number one corner, but the rest of the defense, Travis Hunter is drafted to be filling on both sides there. So you're always going to play him a little more on one side, if not all on that, but you're going to have to manage that, and I think that's a big thing for the Jaguars.
That's huge.
This goes back to all the, when we had our fun talking about Ohtani, right, in the conversations about Travis. If part of him breaks, right, if it's going to dramatically change, I think ultimately how they use him, and I would bet that percentages are higher on him only playing one position inside of 3 years than him continuing to play two positions beyond 3 years.
Yeah, I've wish casted this. I want Travis Hunter to succeed, but this is tough, and this kind of proves it. When we come back, Shedeur Sanders is going to play. Our ratings really appreciate that, so we're going to talk about Shedeur Sanders when we come back from the break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back talking about the fifth-round rookie that everybody wants to talk about. Shedeur Sanders is going to play. I'm actually a little surprised. I thought when he hurt that oblique that he might be out multiple weeks. Actually comes back this week to play against the Rams. Here's the plan for the Browns this week. Joe Flacco starts, gets 20, 25 snaps. Then Dylan Gabriel comes in second, although Shedeur fans probably not happy about that. They think he should be number two or number one because they're crazy. and then Shedeur mops up the rest of the game. What do you expect to see out of Shedeur? What do the Browns want to see out of him? What is realistic, Charles?
I think the way that they have set this up, it's really a Dylan Gabriel game, as much as that might upset Shedeur Sanders fans. But I think, Kenny Pickett not playing in this game, and it's not like Joe Flacco's going to see a ton of snaps in this game. I think ultimately what they're going to do is Flacco will get a series or two, and then at that point they're going to focus a large portion of the game on Dylan Gabriel and say to themselves, is it possible this guy can be our backup quarterback?
Yeah.
Because if so, now we can figure out what we want to do with Kenny Pickett. They preserve Kenny Pickett from injury by not playing him in this game, which means Kenny Pickett won't play in the preseason. And again, why wouldn't you play Kenny Pickett in this game if there was not a reason behind that?
I was going to ask about that.
I think he's practiced, right? He's been in practice. He should be prepared and out there and able to play in a game. They're not playing him. And again, I think that's to preserve for injury, give them options on the table, and then also get an extended look at Dylan Gabriel and say, is he capable enough? If he looks capable enough, I think there is a chance that you could see Dylan Gabriel ending up being the number 2 quarterback on this roster. They figure out what they ultimately want to do with Kenny Pickett, and then again with Shedeur as well. Shedeur will play. I would not be surprised though if it ends up being a quarter of
most. Like there's not much. I mean, it depends how this, as you know, how the drives go in the preseason. Like if you really want to play Joe Flacco 20-25 snaps, well, that could bleed deep into the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a half, right?
Right,
yeah,
right. And then what do you have left? Ben, I'll get you in trouble here because people, doesn't the fact that Dylan Gabriel is ahead of Shedeur now and probably Pickett, we'll see what happens with him. That was an interesting point that he's not going to play in this game. Doesn't it prove that Dylan Gabriel has not lost his spot to Shedeur Sanders at all? Shedeur Sanders still kind of fighting uphill here, Ben.
Yeah, and remember, right, they took Gabriel in the 3rd round when they allegedly needed a quarterback, and then they waited a couple more rounds to take Shedeur, right? So wherever they had in the front office, they drafted Gabriel first. That's presumably who they like better, or else they would have drafted Shedeur Sanders first, all things being equal. I thought it was interesting, certainly I do an article kind of comparing the quarterbacks against the spread, who's the starter, who's the backup. Obviously I had Flacco as the starter, I had Kenny Pickett as the backup, and only a difference of about 1.5 points between those two. I just asked an odds maker today about if, let's just say, Shedeur Sanders was the backup. He had that about 3.5 to 4.5 points difference against the spread between Flacco
and it's not like we're getting
Shedeur.
prime Joe Flacco anymore either.
Exactly. So. And look, I think some of that is right. Flacco, whether you think he is a low floor, you kind of know what he is. Whereas Shedeur, there's a lot of variance, right? And the floor could be a lot lower. The ceiling could be higher but Flacco is a veteran. He's been there for a while.
I'm surprised it's only a 3.5 to 4.5 point spread.
He did say to start. He said to start.
Okay, to start. Yeah. Shedeur's getting a lot of mileage out of one appearance in the preseason. Okay.
Like, so now you're going to get in trouble. I like it.
Now listen, I was there for it, right? I saw it, and I thought, hey, looks comfortable. We saw him in a lot of different scenarios. Again, this is something we talked about on the show. He throws a couple of touchdown passes that were window throws. It was nice.
Yeah. He looked good.
But he also threw some terrible balls too. He had an interception that was dropped, threw a couple hospital balls. He had some movement where, he had a sack where he's running around out there, and he struggled against the starters.
Yeah.
Right? Like people seem to forget that most of the advancement that he made was once the starters were out of the game, you're playing up against backups and guys that aren't going to be on the roster when the 53 cut down happens. We're giving him a heck of a lot of credit, okay, in one start to all of a sudden go, well, geez, why is he not moving up? How come, why isn't he challenging Dylan Gabriel right now? What has he done?
Right.
He's got one game. Dylan Gabriel's got a game, right, under his belt. Dylan Gabriel, I thought, looked good in his appearance. And so at this stage, everybody just needs to calm down. Nothing happened realistically.
Nobody could calm down about Shedeur. Nobody.
How much can he do in the preseason, though?
Nothing.
Right?
Nothing.
How much can he do in a couple games?
Right.
There's nothing that transpired in this preseason to change that depth chart from where it was. So this idea that the Browns, and by the way, it's patently absurd that the Browns they're locking up Shedeur Sanders. They're keeping him from realizing his potential. No, they're not. Okay? And relax. Okay? Because I'm pretty sure the Browns season is not going to unfold flawlessly. Okay? And that's being extremely that's being kind. Huh. I think given what the realities there are right now, there's a chance that they will look at Dylan Gabriel at some point in the season because there won't be anything to play for. Okay, I don't know that this is going to be a Browns team that's going to be in contention for the playoffs. And once they're not, you get a look at Dylan Gabriel. You probably get a look at Shedeur, just so you know what are all the cards that we have in the deck. 6 quarterbacks get drafted in the first round. You know, in the next draft. We're going to talk about that later in the segment, but just. Everybody needs to relax, okay? Like, I understand. It's a fun thing to talk
relaxing
about.
It's the internet. That doesn't happen.
And
Come on.
Shedeur is, as I've said 8 million times, the only guy who I've covered who compares to Shedeur is Tebow. As far as, not players, obviously, but just the attention. You can say anything about Shedeur Sanders, and I hope they clip some of this stuff and have the mob come after you. Because you say anything about Shedeur, and people freak out. Like, it is, the freak out about Shedeur is honestly pretty crazy at this point. He's a fourth-string quarterback.
And here's the thing. It's in our best interest for him to be a great player. It's great for our industry, right? It's great for us. Yeah. It's great for shows like this. It's not like we are rooting against the guy.
I like Shedeur. I'm based in Colorado. He was great there.
It's okay to cloak yourself in reality while you look at the situation, okay? And you can have both.
We got him fired up.
He's getting in so much trouble.
To his point, though, Brown's second hardest schedule by opposing season win totals. They're favored in one game, win total of 4.5. So this is not what we're expecting to be a playoff team.
Right.
At some point, you would think if he's on the roster, he'll get a shot later in the season. But you want Flacco to get beat up a little bit and then.
Hey, if you don't want Shedeur to go into a meat grinder, sure, fine, start him. Let's just go ahead. Let's just start him. Let's throw him out there.
Let me ask you. I do want to ask you, like, realistically, Flacco's going to start. We all know that. After that, I think it is all up in the air. How do you think this shakes out? Is Kenny Pickett their number 2 guy? Like you said, them not playing him in this game actually was a little strange.
The entire preseason was geared, and this is from talking to people in the organization before their full squad mini camp in June. The entire preseason was geared toward one thing. Let's pit Kenny Pickett against Dylan Gabriel and figure out who our backup quarterback is, and let's let Shedeur learn at a pace, right? Let's let him figure out the terminology. Let's let him get comfortable. Let's let him learn the offense. Let's let Shedeur be the number 4 quarterback. We'll solve the number 2 quarterback, and then we can decide whether or not Shedeur can ultimately slide up and be the number 3. It was always about resolving Kenny Pickett versus Dylan Gabriel. And I think, again, Kenny Pickett not playing in this final preseason game is to preserve the injury and give yourself the option, if you want to move off of him, and get the prolonged look at Dylan Gabriel to see, can he stack 2 quality kind of outings on each other?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Does he
Dylan
show a
Gabriel
stride?
looked good last week.
Right.
Like, he played well.
And if he plays well again, I think you sit there and you go, hey, we're risking it with Flacco in a sense, right? I mean, come on. We're starting a 40-plus-year-old Joe Flacco at this stage. We can also risk it at backup and start the kid who we think knew our offense inside and out by the end of the preseason and made the strides we wanted to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to move on to the Buccaneers because there was some good news on them. Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs, both coming off the PUP. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to play week 1. Chris Godwin's probably not going to practice till week 2. They don't expect Tristan Wirfs, their great left tackle, to play week 1. But to me, this is great news for the Bucs. Right. This means they're getting 2 stars back well ahead of time. It could have been October before they come back. Sounds like you don't take guys off PUP right now unless you think they're going to be back early in the season. I'm very, very high on the Bucs coming into this year, Ben. I'm kind of digging this hole where I think the Buccaneers are my dark horse NFC team to compete in the Super Bowl. I know, Charles, you hate that, but you'll remind me of it when I'm wrong. But
I mean, we're in Vegas. Did you put money on that?
I might have.
Oh, okay.
I don't. Anything crazy I say, there's probably a betting slip involved somewhere. Anyway, Ben, good news for the Bucs, right? Where are you at with the Buccaneers this year? You can't be as high as I am on the Buccaneers because I'm crazy. But this Bucs team, I like them a lot.
I might not be as high. I was testing them out as that dark horse. I was test driving the take. It was
this
a little.
This doesn't feel like a full-throated backing.
A little
right
cold
now.
water
He's
was
being kind to
poured.
me.
I will say, a little cold water was poured. Having dinner with someone I respect in the betting world last night, who was a little lower on the Bucs.
But why so? Why so?
New offensive coordinator again.
Okay.
Obviously the Wirfs, injury a bit, and just feeling like, did you get the best out of Baker Mayfield,
Yes.
right? And so if that was his peak. And they played well, right? 10-7 against the number.
I don't think that we saw the best. Yes, he might not do 41 touchdowns again. He's going to regress from that. I think we need to get our heads around the fact that Baker Mayfield is a top 10 quarterback. He's played that way for 2 years now in this. Multiple offensive coordinators. He's getting guys jobs every year. Canales, Cohen. I mean, Grizzard comes up, and he was their pass game coordinator last year. I don't expect there to be a big difference in this offense. Yes, I'm going to make my Buccaneers pitch this whole time.
And to your point, Baker, in my article, 12th against the spread, 4.73 points. Now, part of that's because Kyle Trask is the backup, right? So a big drop off. But no, he's played well, and the Bucs, I mean, they were 5th best in the entire league in net yards per play, right? So they were a very good team last year.
They beat the Lions.
Yep,
they should have beat the Chiefs if they go for 2.
They're favored in 12 games this year, including their final 6 games of the season. They also have 3 straight home games, week 13 to 15 down the stretch, which are always some of those that help. So I'm high. I don't know if I'm as high as you necessarily, but in that division, right? If they're winning, you're getting in the playoffs, you're getting a home game. That's a good start.
Let me give you some disruption here. What if Mike Evans can't be Superman forever? He can't.
Okay.
Like it's not possible. Like eventually,
but
Mike
we haven't seen any of that.
Right. Okay. So let's just go ahead and keep betting that it'll never happen. Right? Yeah. Sure. It hasn't rained in a week. It's never going to rain again.
He wakes up, gets out of bed, 1,000-yard season.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Yeah. Eventually, Mike Evans is going to hit some kind of a wall, right? And now it could be a steep drop off. It could be a steady decline. Whatever. He's a Hall of Famer either way. I'm not diminishing the guy. I'm just saying
of course.
Reality comes into play at some point. So there's that. We don't know what Chris Godwin's going to look like coming off of injury. We just assume he's going to be Chris Godwin.
But the fact that they brought him off PUP, I think, is a good sign.
I like that. I will say that he and Wirfs coming off PUP, it monumentally advances their ability to once again win that division, win the NFC South. Wirfs is the absolute anchor. He is the guy that brings that offensive line together. Like he is, to me, is almost as important as anybody outside of Baker Mayfield on that offense. Right. That's how important he is to solidifying that. Now that said, we don't know what Wirfs is going to look like coming off of PUP. We don't know what Godwin's going to look like coming off PUP. We expect there to be no complications to the ramp-up process. Mike Evans is going to be Mike Evans again, right? That's what we expect. Emeka Egbuka fits perfectly, right? So he's just going to jump in and automatically pump it. No, wait. No, don't you understand how many variables here where you're like, it's all going to happen, man. It's all. And I will mention this. You're right. We have seen the very best of Baker Mayfield the last 2 seasons.
Right. Why can't that continue?
He's been healthy for 2 seasons, and Baker Mayfield is a quarterback who
I could be like, Jared Goff's going to get hurt, so the Lions aren't going to And yes, of course, the worst case scenario for any team is a quarterback getting hurt, but I don't think we can.
This is like you're acting like it's like the Chiefs after they won their first Super Bowl, and they're coming back the next year with the most loaded deck ever. Like talk about them with the Super Bowl. Literally everything I just mentioned has to go right, and I haven't even gotten to the defensive side of the football yet. Okay, so.
Who do you like? Who do you like in the NFC?
I don't like anybody.
Nobody. Yeah, you don't like any, especially when you're sitting next to me.
And Baker has been singing Emeka Egbuka's praises.
Right, and that's what I'm talking about. I think he's a big part
obviously,
of
what's he going to say? He's terrible. No,
I almost think Godwin is a bonus at this point because he comes back, he's healthy, plays like he did early last season when he was awesome. Talking about Yahoo Fantasy Kickoff Weekend, Chris Godwin was carrying fantasy teams for like 6 weeks before he got hurt. If he comes back and gives you something, that's almost a bonus. I think Evans and Egbuka could be great together.
Marvin Harrison was going to go for 1,500 and 12 touchdowns last year, and that didn't happen. I mean, come on, man. Like I get it. I'm not saying that there's not a reason for you to be enthused or to pick them as a dark horse team. That's fine, but I'm just saying.
Here's a big part of it.
You're betting on everything going right.
Here's a big part of it for me is I don't trust that division. I think the Saints are bad. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. I think the Panthers' defense is not good enough to get them to a playoff level, and I don't trust the Falcons. I think the Buccaneers run away with this division. And then they're going.
So you just made an argument that you think it's a weak division.
Yes.
That's why they're a Super Bowl team.
And they could backdoor themselves into the number 1 seed. Think about it. The Lions, the NFC North is going to be beating each other up, right? There's 4 good teams in that division. Philly, yes, they're probably going to run away with the NFC East. I get that, but it's not a cakewalk with the Commanders, even the Cowboys, when Micah comes in. NFC West, I don't have a team I love out of there.
He's not
You
sold.
are not sold. I cannot sell Charles.
You got to get in the dance. They have a very easy path to do it, and then it's a matchup based in the playoffs.
Again, number 1 seed, 2 home wins away from a Super Bowl. I think the Buccaneers. I'm telling you guys. Clip this.
Sounds like a bet. Sounds like a bet.
That's a good thing we're closer to Yahoo Sports.
It was like a year ago at this time. This guy was like, Aaron Rodgers is going to be.
I did.
Why
can't you bring up the fact I like the Commanders?
What did you think Aaron Rodgers was going to be? Can you go ahead and repeat what you thought he was going to be? What did you predict him to be?
Oh, he's going to be good.
Didn't you predict him to be a potential MVP or win a Super Bowl? That's right. The Jets were your Super Bowl pick. That's what it was. The Jets were a Super Bowl pick.
All right, we got to go to break now. Thanks,
Saved by the bell.
Charles. I appreciate you. We are going to talk some betting on the other side because we are close to the Yahoo Sportsbook here at the Venetian Resort. And somebody put a few grand on the New Orleans Saints to win the Super Bowl. We got to talk about that when we come back. We'll be right back with you. All right, we are back. And since we're in Las Vegas here at the Venetian, not far from the Yahoo Sportsbook, got to talk about some big Super Bowl bets here. Ben Fawkes is with us, our betting expert. A couple of them you ran down in a story you wrote for Yahoo Sports. Somebody bet 25 grand on the Raiders to win the Super Bowl at 100-1 odds. Nice $2.5 million payout. I didn't know Jason Fitz had that kind of money, but good for him. 10 grand on the Patriots at 80-1. I actually don't mind that too much. I don't think it's going to hit, but 80-1, I like those odds. This is, how do you come up with this? Somebody bet the Jets at 250-1 odds, but bet $3,196.96. Is that just what they had left in their app? I don't know.
Probably an emptying the account situation.
Is this a lucky number? Is 96 a lucky number? There are two I want to talk about. First of all, somebody bet $2,500 on the Saints at 300-1. Ben, why? Can you just send us the money? We could split that up. We could have a fun time here in Vegas with 2,500.
Listen, I like to tell people I report on the odds. I don't explain the bets, right? So I'm just saying what people bet on, not why they bet on it.
I want a time stamp on the bets because
Okay,
I want to
like
know what time
3 in
of
the morning.
day. Yeah, because like every once in a while, not often in my life, but occasionally a package will arrive at my house and I'll be like, who the hell bought a lawn gnome? And then I'll look at my eBay account and I'll be like, oh my God, I bought a lawn gnome at like 3:24 in the morning on the state.
That's the Raiders, or that's the Saints Super Bowl bet, or the Raiders.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I dropped 25 grand on the Raiders to win a Super Bowl last night. That ain't good. Don't want to find that receipt in your pocket.
The Raiders one is fascinating because there's also a $10,000 bet on the Raiders at 100-1. And these are two, as I confirmed, two separate bettors. Not the same bettor with two bets. Also, the Raiders now have worse Super Bowl odds than when it was placed, which is never what you want.
Yeah, odds go the other way.
Not what you want. Yeah. And look, there's a lot of reasons people place these futures bets. Ultimately, there's also marketplaces. You can buy and sell these, right? So if the value goes up, and again, Raiders, you're not sure if they're going to be good, but if they are, right, you could potentially make some money off of that, even if you don't actually take the ticket all the way to the playoffs or the Super Bowl.
You're not taking the Raiders all the way unless Geno Smith suddenly. One I do want to talk about that I thought was a pretty good one. It's the Detroit Lions. 54,500. Again, that's kind of, why not just go 55,000? What are you holding back on that extra 500 for? At 10-1. And here's why. Both you guys. I'll start with you, Ben. I think the Lions have been actually undervalued. Like 10-1 to win the Super Bowl. We forget this team went 15-2 last season. Every conversation we have had about the Lions this offseason is centered around two names, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn. I get it, they're great. They are. Are we overrating? Have we gone the other way? Has the pendulum swung too far? It's not like they're just dragging guys out of the stands on a raffle to call plays. They still have professional coordinators here. Calvin Shepard learned from Aaron Glenn. John Morton learned from Sean Payton. It was with the Lions before. Are the Lions a good value now at 10-1?
They also didn't have Aiden Hutchinson. Right? Who's coming back. So I think...
Anybody.
Anybody by the end of the year.
Cornerback against the Commanders.
They were still fifth in the league in DVOA on defense last year without all those guys.
So I think I totally agree. The last 2 years, they're 27-7, right, in the regular season. 15-2 last year. They also are bettor's best friend. They've gone 24-10 in the regular season against the spread.
Because they're not sneaking up on the market.
Right, 70%. They're favored to win the NFC North. Win total of 10.5, which is tied with last year for their best since 1989, right? So they haven't been good for a while, but recently they've been good. And those odds, like you said, 10-1, great website, Sports Odds History, goes back to 1977. Those are their best Super Bowl odds since then.
Wow.
Right? So high expectations, even with the disappointments the last 2 years. You feel like the 2 years ago against the Niners, maybe it was a year too early, but they probably should have won that game. Then last year, kind of their year. Jaden Daniels does what he does, and obviously injuries on defense. I do think it's a good bet. I think they've almost been overlooked with how well the Eagles played. And, we were talking about the Bucs and matchups in the playoffs. Like, it was just a bad matchup for the Lions, right? They had some turnovers. They played a bad game. Their offense was great for a lot of the game, too. The defense just couldn't stop a cold. So that was the issue. I think they're going to be good again this season. I agree with you on some of the coordinators. Now, I do think Ben Johnson could just be that guy, that it is that big of a difference. But they still have all the offensive pieces. The one thing I got to look at a little bit is that offensive line, right? With Frank Ragnow retiring,
that's
new
huge,
center, a little bit of shifting around there. But yeah, the defense, you'd like to think, knock on wood, has to be healthier. This is going to be a good team again.
Yeah, where are you at in the Lions?
Well,
Charles?
and I think too, look, Ben Johnson's an immense loss no matter what. Like, we were never going to be able to get around that. I don't care if he has success with the Bears or not. What he was with the Detroit Lions was unbelievable. I still think, and it was funny, I was talking to Sean McVay about this. We were having a conversation about Ben Johnson. We were talking about the stumble bum play. The fact that he got it off of a play where it literally was a fumble, and it literally was, and he looked at that and said, we could fake that and get the same return out of it. And I mean, it's his mind, the way he works, the way he drills. To lose that there's going to be an impact. Now, that said, Detroit does have the one thing that kind of helps mitigate. You have a veteran quarterback. You have one of the things that I liked when I watched the quarterback series on Netflix was watching Jared Goff and Ben Johnson when they would do the headset, the mic'd up headset, so you'd hear what he was saying, and you would hear Jared Goff go, please call this play, please call this play, please call this play, and then Ben Johnson would call it. And I'm like, man, okay, they're pretty well in sync. He's thinking like Ben Johnson does at the line of scrimmage. So I think that helps mitigate it somewhat. I think my question here is, yeah, they lost a ton defensively over the course of the season last year, but I still have no idea. They're already facing some injuries in the preseason, right? And I still don't know what they're going to look like defensively. I don't know what the new coordinators are going to bring to the table. I think there's reasons to have questions, but the one underlying thing that really helps here is they're loaded. They have a ton of talent.
Loaded.
Right?
People don't want to talk about this. They were better than the Eagles last year.
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah.
The Eagles were healthier in the playoffs, deserved the Super Bowl and all that, but the Lions were the better team last year.
Yeah, and look, the playoffs and winning a Super Bowl, speaking as a Vikings fan who's had plenty of suffering, right, is about playing your best in the playoffs.
Right.
The Lions, to that point, through Week 12, their defense was first in EPA.
Yeah.
Right?
They were unbelievable.
And
Considering
then
the injuries,
they were
Aaron Glenn
29th
lost,
the rest of the season. So
Right.
ton of injuries. That was what did them in.
Absolutely. I want to talk. We did bring up Ben Johnson, so I thought another betting tidbit you had there, Ben. One of the most popular bets right now going is the Bears under 8.5 wins. Although in Illinois we got a $300,000 bet on the Bears over 8.5. That's very interesting. 8.5 seems about right because it's like pick your side. Do you think the Bears are taking off this year or not? We saw them look really good in the preseason last week. I thought Caleb was really on time with his throws, and you can kind of see, all right, this is the Ben Johnson offense with Caleb Williams running it. Where you at with the Bears? And this is a strange kind of betting pattern where you got $300,000 on the over, but yet the under is one of those popular bets out there.
Yeah, and look, this is why whenever, send out one of these big bets, this doesn't mean this is the sharpest person in the world, right? They just happen to have $300,000 to
Also,
bet. By the way, also a better in Illinois.
Bars in Chicago open very late.
There you go.
Again.
There you go.
Bring that up again.
This was a mobile bet too, so it could have been
Rush
fired
Street,
off
yeah,
at
4 in
the
the
bar.
morning, yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was interesting. And then one of the books here in town that does take a lot of sharp action, one of their sharpest bettors took the Bears under 8.5. Right?
But
so
why?
You have
Why?
that
Do you know?
dichotomy.
Can you figure out the why? Like, why are people? Is it just a division? Is it not believing in Caleb? Is it not believing in Ben Johnson as a first-year head coach?
I didn't get the
Right,
why,
no.
but if I was to say, I think it's probably just they had. To me, Caleb's a little bit like the Trevor Lawrence with Urban Meyer, right? Where just you had that year that was so bad,
Yeah.
you have to reprogram everything, right? And so I think it seems like everything we've heard out of camp is they're doing that in terms of Ben Johnson making sure, right? 3-step drop, 5 under center, all this, like the very basics are right. And obviously, we've seen Ben Johnson with the Lions, like we're talking about, all these amazing plays. Well, that's great, but can you take a snap under center? Are you getting the ball out on time? All those things. I think that's the only question. They have all these nice shiny toys, new offensive line, defense should be good. Can you get the basic stuff down? And if that goes poorly, you also have Tyson Bagent, who had a great, soundbite the other day, but also one odds maker I talked to for that other piece said, I think that's the guy who played D4, right? Like, so he's not the most well-known or best
right now. I got paid
backup
this
quarterback. So I think that's the case if everything went wrong for the Bears.
Yeah.
And you bring up Trevor Lawrence and the Urban Meyer experience. Remember, there was a time too when Doug Peterson went in there. We're like, oh, there you go. He's got his guy.
Fixed.
Like this
Solved.
is fixed.
Yeah.
That's exactly who he needs is a guy like Doug Peterson to fix him. I think it's you haven't seen. You don't know what to expect because we don't know what the rollout ultimately is going to look like. I mean, I'll say this: when Caleb had his good game, when he has a good game, you go, what elements of Ben Johnson am I seeing, right? And look at the tight ends. Go back and watch that game.
Oh, yeah.
The way he used Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland in that first drive, I was like, that looks like Detroit. That looks like how he, Detroit had a few tight ends that were, whether it was in the red zone or whether it was like Laporta from, end line to end line. I mean, I could see some Ben Johnson for sure in that equation. Now, I am more worried about anything else, the offensive line. Like, if obviously I'm worried about Caleb, but I'm worried about how the offensive line, even though it's rebuilt,
but
look,
the interior is pretty good.
I get it. I get it. It's reconstituted. I understand that. I'm not saying they didn't change it. But when we get to the regular season, I always hear great things about teams' offensive lines. I always do. I swear, I go on training camp tours, everyone tells me their offensive line's gelling.
Yeah.
And then I get to the regular season and I'm like, what the hell happened, man? I'm like, your offensive line's terrible. I mean, Houston, last year, I went through Houston's camp and I was like, oh, man. Oh, my God. Some of these guys, I mean, they look like they're beasts. Like, I'm sitting there saying, like, C.J. Stroud is my dark horse pick for the MVP. And their offensive line it might have literally been the worst offensive line football last
terrible.
year.
Terrible.
And they destroyed the entire thing in the offseason because it was so bad. So let's wait and see what
we got about 1 minute, a little bit less than 1 minute. I did want to talk about MVP really quick. A couple of $50,000 bets on Lamar Jackson at 6-1, 5.5-1. Joe Burrow's most popular bet. Any MVP picks? So you probably don't want to do this because you are a voter, Charles, so we don't want to influence you. But Ben, you got any MVP
The one I've been giving is, I think, with the Niners, that easy schedule is Brock Purdy.
I agree
right?
with you. I agree with you.
If they play well, he's going to get the credit. Christian McCaffrey's not going to play a full season anyway.
Right.
Ayuk's coming back late. I think Purdy, he has to play well enough to get the MVP, and I think a lot of people think it's one of those top 4 or 5 people. Jaden Daniels also very popular, second most bets
I can see that.
And money. But Purdy's the one I have my eye on. I think he was about 28-30-1.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that when the Burrow money is coming in, voters, don't give it to guys who don't win their division. You got to be a quarterback from a division-winning team. So we can cut this pool down to about 8.
And how much better can Burrow play than last year?
You absolutely have to make the playoffs too. And again, after seeing Cincinnati,
but even wild card they don't win MVPs anymore.
I mean, there's a pretty good chance that Cincinnati doesn't make the playoffs.
I agree.
They could score 45 a game and still not make the playoffs.
Give up 47.
Trey Hendrickson. All right, speaking of that, we got storylines for the season coming up from all 3 of us. We'll get to that right after the break. All right, we're kind of wrapping up the preseason. Got 1 more week to go, but a lot of it is done. So we wanted to talk about some storylines about what we've seen, what we're going to see. And a big part of the story this season is going to be that there are 5-6 quarterbacks that are probably going to go in the first round of next year's draft. That means 5 or 6 teams are going to be in the market to draft a quarterback next year. Charles, which teams should be looking ahead to this 2026 NFL draft? Which teams are going to be in the market? Kind of which way do you go season? Do you find answer a quarterback, or are you fishing in the Clint Kubniak water?
I call it the referendum year for a number of franchises when it comes to their quarterback situation. As you said, right now in the early looking, when the advanced scouting is pointing to potentially whether or not if Arch Manning's in the draft, could be six first-round quarterbacks, maybe 6 guys in the first 20 picks in the draft. If Arch Manning isn't, could still be 6 guys because someone always comes out.
Somebody
of the
always
ether.
emerges,
right? Yeah, Cam Ward. We didn't know about Cam Ward. Year before that, Jaden Daniels. It's just you never know who's going to arrive on the scene and push themselves into a snare where they're possibly a first-round pick. So to me, when I look at the storyline this year, I'm staring at these teams knowing they're deciding this year, where do we go now from a quarterback standpoint? I think tier 1, the teams, the Saints, Colts, and Browns are all sitting there going, we're deciding whether we're drafting a quarterback. Even with the Browns having drafted 2 quarterbacks in the 3rd and the 5th, even with the Colts having Daniel Jones there and trying to make a decision with Anthony Richardson, even with Tyler Shough getting drafted by the Saints, I think all 3 of those teams are going to make a decision off of this year and decide if they're in, prime position in round 1, they could potentially dip into that quarterback pool. I think the next tier after that, Rams, Steelers, Jets. I think all 3 of those franchises, from talking to people in all 3 of those franchises, they all hope their current starter has 2 years in them.
Do you think Stafford does? Because the Rams are the interesting team on that list, because that's a Super Bowl contender. Still.
Yeah, and I talked at length with both general manager Les Snead, Sean McVay, the coach, about like, when do you make this decision? Like, you've been putting off this quarterback decision for a while now. And when I went through, he had just begun to have these back problems, but you could tell they knew, hey, we have 2 first-round picks in this upcoming draft, in the 2026 draft.
That's right. It's,
Stole from the Falcons.
Yeah, the Falcons
and,
trade.
and so they're like, if we're positioned, and I know what their assessment is on a guy like Arch Manning, and I'm telling you right now, if they feel there's any way they could get in position to draft Arch Manning, they're going to do it. I'm flat out, I'm telling you, unless Arch Manning just implodes at Texas this season,
Right.
I think they would draft him. And I almost wonder if there would be a background conversation of, is Arch coming out? Is he not coming out? Arch, maybe you want to come out and play for the Rams. Maybe this is a good place for you ultimately.
Yeah, the problem is the Saints are getting that first pick, and they would never give up that pick in a billion years.
But yeah, there's the Rams know now with Stafford, they're in a spot here, and they're going to operate with that, that way going forward. I think they know more now with the continued knowing it's going to be a maintenance issue with the back all year long. They really got to figure out what they're going to do from the quarterback spot. I think the Steelers, they want 2 years out of Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be, let's see, what does this look like, and what does Rodgers ultimately want to do? Right. Again, referendum there.
Do you think he could play in a second year? Because he's almost intimated that he's like, this could be it. You think it could be 2?
I think if he has, Aaron Rodgers is a very emotional football player in that when there's success and he's happy playing and he connects with teammates, he will stick around. And also, not only that, when he connects with coaches, right? And I think him having a connection with Mike Tomlin could really affect him staying a second year there as well. The Jets with Justin Fields, I think they would like to get at least 2 years out of Justin Fields, but I can tell you when you talk to people inside the franchise, it's we'll see. We'll see how this turns out. I mean, we are making a low-risk 2-year commitment here that could very easily be a 1-year commitment if we feel like we want to make it that way. And then I'll just throw in 2, maybe third-tier teams. I put them lower on the scale because if they get rid of the quarterbacks they currently have, financially it will incur pain. The Miami Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa and the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray. Both franchises, I think, are sitting there saying, we got to do something with this quarterback.
Talk about a referendum year.
Yeah, both of them are sitting there saying, this quarterback, we got to do something with this guy now.
Yep.
And I think if either tanks, if they both tank, there's going to be serious consideration given to parting companies with those quarterbacks and figuring out, we'll go through the financial cap nightmare and start to stare at where is our position in this draft and do we go and get a quarterback.
Ben, as we go into the season, 2 weeks away from pretty much 2 weeks from right now, a kickoff in Philadelphia. What you looking at for this season? What are storylines?
Yeah, I mean, one, just to say, because there's odds on everything, right?
Oh,
so
I love
odds
it.
to go, number 1, Garrett Nussmeier's up there, Cade Klubnik, Drew Aller. Lenora Sellers also has been rising
I like
from
him.
South
I like
Carolina.
him, if Arch doesn't come out.
Arch Manning was the favorite, moved back, now moved into kind of that 3 or 4. So a couple of them there. 2, I think, teams that interest me. 1, obviously, I am a Vikings fan, so not the most impartial here, but just talking to a lot of bettors and bookmakers, the Vikings and the Steelers, right? 2 teams, both win totals of 8.5. The Vikings at BetMGM are juiced. I think they're about minus 170 to the over. But a lot of people like the over, and a lot of people like the under for both teams. And they both have compelling cases, right? I think for the Vikings, it's you kind of have the Ferrari. You just have a driver who is on his learner's permit, if that, in J.J. McCarthy. And so you're just saying, don't crash the car. I don't know that there's really been a historical precedent for a team that I think everyone would say is a top 5 roster, top 10 roster, but a quarterback who's in his rookie season, essentially.
He was the 10th pick of the draft. A smart organization traded up.
But he was also the 5th quarterback, right, in that draft.
6th quarterback turned out okay.
Remember when Ben Roethlisberger took over in Pittsburgh? And we were like, man, that team is loaded. Like, what are they going to get out of Roethlisberger? And he
threw 15 passes a game, and they won 15-1.
And they went 15-1. Yeah, so.
Look, the Vikings aren't going 14-3 again.
No.
Like, people who are like, well, the Vikings are going to regress. Yeah, no kidding. They're not winning 14
receiver
again.
for 3 games. Justin Jefferson has soft tissue issues already.
Come on.
There's a little concern
JJ
beyond
will be
J.J. McCarthy.
fine. Justin Jefferson will be fine.
Yeah, soft tissue, that doesn't ever pop up for guys who run like crazy.
He's got a little bit of veteranitis.
But yeah, look, I think the Vikings are fascinating. Again, strong defense as well. Flores... Maybe if you didn't have the NFL case, might be somewhere else and not still a defensive coordinator with the Vikings. So you kind of have almost a bonus that he's still around. And the Steelers just, again, could go really, really well and could go really, really poorly, and it's hinging on a track record of 40-plus-year-old quarterbacks starting, which is Tom Brady.
There's one guy,
So-
Tom Brady. Just because Tom Brady didn't doesn't mean anybody else can. I'm going to give you guys my storyline real quick, and feel free to call me crazy, as Charles always does when we're on the same show together. The one team that I've come around on the most this month, and maybe it's because Sean Payton telling you crazy stuff about the Broncos going to the Super Bowl, I'm really high on the Broncos. I just keep getting higher and higher on this team. We've all been waiting for somebody to punch back at the Chiefs in the AFC West. I think it might be the Broncos this year.
Only thing that worries me about it is I think a lot of people are coming around on them, and that's what scares me. Is I think a lot of people are buying into this, and I'm with you. Being there.
Wow,
looking
we
at
agree on something.
Yeah,
what?
The defense
I might need to
Only in
rethink- I
Vegas.
need to rethink this.
defense is loaded. I think the Sean's really happy with the skill positions. He loves where the quarterback's at. It is as happy as I have seen him in. I can't even remember. I'd have to go back to the New Orleans, like right around when they won the Super Bowl with Breeze. This is how amped he is on this team right now, and that just scares me a little bit.
Great defense. Offensive line's awesome. Some of these rookies in the preseason, I think R.J. Harvey's looked good. I think Troy Franklin's not a rookie, but he's looked really good. Pat Bryant, the rookie receiver for them, he's looked good. This Broncos team is really deep.
When you meet with your team in your first meeting and you don't go, hey, start talking about the AFC West, and instead you're like, I'm talking about the Super Bowl. I mean, it's just crazy, man. I mean, but that's where he's at. And you look at the two deep, man, that team looks good. George Payton and Sean Payton together have done really
Ben,
well.
is there any chance Broncos win this division? I think they're 3.5.
They're plus
325.
310. They've tied with the Chargers now.
Did they not split with the Chiefs last year? And I think the game they lost, I think they played them
Well,
tough.
the Chiefs gave up in Week 18. But yes, you are correct.
Yeah.
They should have won at
They
Arrowhead.
should have won
though.
both.
Had the
They should have
blocked
won the
field
one
goal.
at Arrowhead. They should have swept.
And to your point, most bet of any division, the Broncos plus 310 to win the FC West. Of any team to win any division.
I like that. I like the Jaguars too. But we got to get out of here because there's a craps table calling our names right out there in the Venetian Casino. I'm at Yahoo Schwab. He's at Charles Robinson. He's at BFox22. Thank you for watching. Keep tuned to our Yahoo Fantasy kickoff this week. We will be back on Inside Coverage on Monday. Thanks for joining us.